All right, we are recording. Okay, so we are now with Ana Maria Suarez Franco, who is the permanent representative for FIAN International in Geneva and is coordinating the work that FIAN International does on accountability. FIAN International is a human rights organization. They specialize on the right to food and nutrition. So thanks a lot, Ana Maria, for being with us. And thanks a lot for accepting to share your thoughts with us and the students of global justice. So, Ana Maria, can you share with us, as an initial thoughts, your vision on human rights and why you engage with human rights?
Okay, first of all, thank you very much for the invitation. If you ask me to define the human rights, I would say that these are an emancipatory tool to allow people to channelize their social struggles through mechanisms in the law in the different states to change structures of injustice. And the aim of human rights, in my view, is to get human dignity, not just for individuals, but also for collectives. What I always say in my work in FIAN is that human rights are important first because they imply states' obligations. We know there are these states' obligations to respect, protect, and fulfill, which means also that people have entitlements. And the idea of this conception is to change from the vision from charity. When people do good, they do that because they want from the bottom of their hearts, to a situation in which in the laws and in the legal frameworks, not just of the states, but also of the international community, these entitlements of people are recognized and therefore authorities can be accountable. And it is very powerful because it focuses on the marginalized people. That's why I say that it is a tool for justice. And also from the view of FIAN, the human rights come from the struggles of the people. So you know that there are those schools or streams of law that say that human rights come from the gods. But this is not the views that we have in FIAN. We don't believe that this comes with the natural law, but this comes because people have had their struggles and now these struggles are enshrined in the law. And therefore, these are very powerful for us.
Thanks a lot, Ana Maria, and thanks a lot for bringing also this very important point of the move away from charity and from benevolence into enshrining something in the law that can be then enforced and that people can use to hold accountable those that are the duty bearers, right? As we say. So the students will be facing and have been facing different perspectives and different examples of human rights in the positive and in the negative sense, or some limits and some shortcomings. And I would like you to engage with this idea of some good examples of when human rights have been transformative and you saw that human rights achieved something that could have not been obtained without the infrastructure of human rights. And I know that FIAN is working everywhere in the world, so it would be great to hear from you, from your own experience on the ground, what happened and how that was possible.
Yeah, so I would like to begin from the cases that made me dedicate my life being a lawyer. I was a lawyer on administrative and tax law, and made me change to be a lawyer working on human rights. And it was especially the impact that the inclusion of human rights in the national constitution in Colombia have in changing jurisprudence in favor of the marginalized groups of the society. And it was very important when the Constitutional Court in Colombia began recognizing, for example, that domestic workers had the right to work. Normally, domestic workers were people working almost as slaves, without a contract, without social services. And then through the mobilization of all these women, mainly women, who claimed at the Constitutional Court in Colombia many cases of injustices, the Constitutional Court changed the whole law for these groups of people. And nowadays they have the same rights that everyone in the country, even so that now in terms of the COVID-19, they are not going to work to the different houses, homes they work with, but they have still their salaries and they can claim social security. So it was a huge change where they passed from being something similar to slaves to be normal workers. So this is a very old experience that was very powerful to me. And we also have a very new one. In 2018, the Declaration on the Rights of Peasants has been adopted by the Human Rights Council and the UN General Assembly. This is an international non-binding instrument recognizing that farmers, fishers, pastoralists, indigenous people, and others have specific human rights that can be claimed. And you would say, okay, this is just a declaration at the UN. But when I have been then going to different countries to see how the people are appropriating this tool, I have here about very interesting initiatives and outcomes as well. Some of them include that, for example, now the rights of peasants are included in the national development plans of specific municipalities, which mean peasants were not in, there was not money to, for example, support agroecology, and now they are included in the budgets, and therefore they will have more resources to continue with their activities in a context where the agro industry is so big and is more or less running over these people who feed our world and produce the good food in friendly ways with the environment. And this happens at the national level, the local level, sorry, but also we are seeing some changes at the national level. For example, thanks to the work of the Justicia, an organization we were speaking about, now peasants will be included in the census. So they will be a category in the statistics produced in the countries, which are the base for the adoption of public policies. And also already during all the process of adoption and negotiation and adoption of the declaration, different peasants movements presented cases to the courts, including in Colombia, and now we have different judicial decisions recognizing the rights of peasants, including, for example, the right to food sovereignty in cases where mega infrastructure projects are destroying their livelihoods. So these are very specific cases. And maybe the last one, some years ago, I was in Paraguay working also with indigenous communities. These were people in the region of El Chaco, and they were really dying due to lack of water, because the water is grabbed by the big farmers. And I was there speaking to the mayor of the community, and I told him, look, in international human rights law, the right to water is a right, and these people have the right, and if you don't do that, I will bring the case to the committees in the UN in Geneva. At the next day, we had the communities receiving tanks with water. So it's very important to understand that when you use human rights in an emancipatory way, and that's the way we have been using them in Latin America, you can have really changes, structural changes, as the one of the domestic workers or the way we are going through with the peasants. But you can also have very specific outcomes for very specific communities, as it was the case in Paraguay.
Well, thanks a lot, Ana Maria. These are all three very interesting examples, and I think that they show a lot the importance also of mobilization and a lot of the importance of the political movement also behind human rights. The fact that human rights on their own may not be enough, and there is the importance of organizations like FIAN and other organizations around the world that are capable of leveraging and also threatening sometimes the use of human rights against the human rights violators. So I only have like two quick final questions for you, and one would be about what you think can be done to improve the human rights system, if you think that there is any scope for improvement. And then I would like to ask you, what do you think that we as students or people from very different disciplines in Antwerp who are about to finish our career could be doing, should be doing, how we should be engaging, if there is anything that we can do, like what would be the message for all of us who are not on the ground with you doing the amazing work that the FIAN is doing. So maybe if we can start from the scope for improvement, what do you think could be done better?
So as I have presented these very specific positive cases, which depart from the emancipatory view of human rights, we can also have the other way in which many people, especially those in the North, and especially those defending neoliberal and capitalist thinking streams, take them. And it is using them as a tool for domination and to break the political mobilization. And I think this is really dangerous, especially there is a stream in which human rights have been professionalized in the bad sense, which means, for example, explain in very difficult terms that mean that people that need to use human rights for justice cannot access to the mechanisms that have been established, for example, at the UN level. So a way to improve that is really to ensure that on the same time that we do our very professional and very sophisticated analysis, we ensure that we have also, so to say, social translation that allow everyone who needs human rights to understand what human rights are, how to use them, and especially how to keep building up the human rights from the experiences of the people and not from some white, rich people in the North, because this, as any social institution, is evolving. And we can evolve in the sense of make it just a tool for instrumentalization of the people, or we can evolve so that it really helps for change, for justice. So I think always keeping this connection between what we do, especially, and I come to the next question, as academics, as researchers, as lawyers in the North, connecting that with the realities of the people, trying to understand what the people struggle for, trying to understand which are the real visions of the world and problems, and to understand diversity, and then translating that into our studies and not doing the contrary and feeling that we have the truth and imposing the truth to the people, we would improve a lot. And I think, of course, it depends on which channels of work you decide. You can be a very classical lawyer, and then being a very classical lawyer, you can also, for example, do pro bono work to support some movements, or even some of the human rights organizations that need people understanding other areas of work, for example, administrative law, tax law, etc. But maybe if you are a doctor, the challenge is that you do not just speak with your patients about what they have to eat or not to eat, but also make them aware that in some cases the problems they face are not just moral problems or individual lack of responsibility, but are related to structural problems that we have in our societies. And therefore, while I work for my well-being, I work for my well-being, I can also use these political tools to change the environments that make that we live in the world we have today.
Well, that's great. Thanks a lot, Ana Maria, and I can totally subscribe what you are saying about the opportunity and the role that we all have to play vis-a-vis human rights, independently on the profession that we are undertaking and the role that we have in society, and always being reminded that there are some duties and some obligations, and there is a system around us that we always have to keep in mind when we engage with people. I thank you a lot for joining us and for taking the time to be with us during this quarantine that is making all of us crazy, thinking about other way in which the world is crumbling and the way in which we can use human rights maybe to build a better world in the future. So thanks a lot, Ana Maria, and I'm sure that the students will be very much interested in getting in touch, and I'm hoping that FIAN will be will be one of the options that they will think about for their future. So thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you,
Bye
Tomas.
bye.
And of course, share my contact data. If people want to get in contact with me, I am very open to do this. Thank you.
The pleasure is ours. Thanks a lot, Ana Maria.